You know, a lot of people say that the fix for this problem on these cars is replacing the instrument cluster, and I really don't want to if I don't have to, and if I can fix it, then I can show you how to fix it. Today we're working on Old Pearl, and we're looking into one of the engine codes, which is the P0462. Now, in the early part of this video, I do one method with the soldering iron, reinstall everything that doesn't work, I pull it back out. You want to watch, if you're curious how the instrument cluster comes out, you want to watch the first part, and then the soldering, you can kind of skip that. It worked for somebody else, but for me, that did not take care of the problem. So once I verified that that did not fix the problem, I pulled the cluster back out, and then I took a butane soldering iron with basically a heat gun tip or just an open tip on it, and I went over the solder joints on the circuit board. Again, you'll see that, but this actually did take care of the problem. So all you'll need to do this for your car, if this is your problem, this was free for me because I already had the soldering iron and also the cordless soldering iron, a butane soldering iron. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver. It would be helpful to have a panel tool and a T15 Torx in order to remove the bolts or the nuts, in order to remove the screws on the back of the instrument cluster. I will have links in the description below for any of the tools that you may need to do this. Like I said, it's pretty minimal. With that said, go ahead and watch the video. First thing we need to do is get this trim bezel off around the instrument cluster. So we're going to push the steering wheel down as far as we can and take a plastic pry tool, and we're going to start prying right here between the knee bolster and this top piece. We may have to pull the knee bolster, I'm not sure. It appears that we do. There's a couple screws under here. They look like Phillips, so I'm going to grab a Phillips screw remover. So if you can see, the screw is right here. It's really difficult to see. Maybe you can see it now. Here's the other one. Alright, now that we have those two bottom screws loose, we're going to try and pop it again. That was easy. Take the pry tool here. Alright, so here we have more Phillips screws. See down in there maybe, and back in there. So my Phillips screw remover that I have right now can only reach these bottom ones. Okay, I'm going to go get a real Phillips screwdriver. Went ahead and grabbed a magnet just in case. Okay, so it looks like to get the cluster out, you have to tilt it back and then pull it. So yeah. There we go. Oh geez, that's not bad at all. So some people said that it's a loose connection, you know, these pins not being in all the way, but these pins in the harnesses look to be seated all the way. So we're going to proceed with our original plan to get this cluster out and do some checking of the wiring harness, or the circuit board. We've got the instrument cluster out, and we've got some 15 or T15. We got some T15 Torx screws to take this back cover off. Alright, and unfortunately I believe that the loose solder joint, or bad solder joint we're looking for, is actually behind one of these plugs. So I think we're going to have to take the needles off and pull this board off. So I actually have a tool for that. I'm going to take a picture just so I can see where everything's landing at the moment, and maybe even take a piece of tape and mark them. So maybe what you can see here is I tried to put the tape right where the needle runs so that when I put them back on, I can put them exactly as they were. And so I just happen to have a needle remover set, or needle removal set. Years ago I bought some gauges and it came with this. So I'll try to find one and put a link in the description for that. You just come up under, pop it off, try to come straight up and try not to let the needle move. Let's take these screws out and see if that helps us. That's all we needed. Right here there's a little clip and a ribbon cable. We'll just push that in, pull the cable out, and we should be good to remove front from the back. Okay. Now I can't really tell anything right away. The C70 is what I saw being repaired. So I'm going to get my soldering iron, heat that up. I'm going to try to maybe get a microscope or a magnifying glass and see if I can look at this a little closer If I see anything, I'll try to get it on camera, but otherwise I'm going to go ahead and take a look around and see if I see anything else. We have a small soldering iron, and this is only a 30 watt, and for what we're doing it's probably plenty, but it is good to have a pretty thin tip on it so we can get right to where we're going. Of course I'll put a link in the description for everything that I'm using here: soldering iron, solder. We don't need much, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some on the tip of this once it gets hot, and then just touch the terminal. Alright, so just a couple seconds ago you saw me do this repair right here on C70. Just reheated the solder, and based on a video that I saw, that is what I believe should have fixed the P0462. It did not. So another method I have seen on the internet is reflowing the solder by putting, a circuit board in an oven at a particular temperature. I couldn't find that information again. So there's also something called a hot air station, which basically blows hot air on the solder and kind of melts it a little bit. I don't have one of those. Also, as far as putting something like this in the oven, it says not to cook in whatever device you do this in. So I decided I would take my butane torch. It's a miniature butane torch with a like a heat gun end on it. So I'm just going to turn this on, heat it up, and I'm going to go over all the solder joints. I'll show you just a little bit here, then I'll back the camera up and you can see what I'm doing. So right now I'm just firing up the soldering iron, and I'm not, you'll see when I back up the camera, I'm not really doing any local heat. I'm just trying to get the solder to remelt a little bit. So I think the oven method was around 200 degrees or so. So it doesn't need to get real hot. And I'm trying this because, a lot of people say that the fix for this problem on these cars is replacing the instrument cluster. And I really don't want to if I don't have to. And if I can fix it, then I can show you how to fix it. And while I'm doing this, I really can't see what I'm doing, so you get the idea. We're just reheating the solder. I'll back the camera up and get a better view for you and for me as well. Alright, so I went over all of these plug connections on the circuit board, and hopefully if there were any loose or bad solder joints, we got them taken care of. I did get a little carried away, and I think we can see the dark spot on that one right there. Hopefully I didn't overheat it and do any damage to it, but if we did, we'll end up with a new instrument cluster. Alright, so I'm going to put this all back together, put it in the car, and we'll see if the check engine light comes on. Alright, so now at this point we are ready to put this back in the car and test it. Hopefully that, I think it was a P0426 or 462 goes away. And yeah, so I'll throw it back in the car with me. We'll put this in and see what happens. Well, hopefully this video was helpful, and if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or just enjoy your feedback.